This meeting is being televised by Chelmsford Telemedia. Is there anyone else present that plans to record? All right, welcome to tonight's meeting. We have a pretty full agenda, so we'll start with the minutes from our last meeting on May 21st. Anybody who'd like to make a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes of the regular school committee meeting of May 21st, 2019.
Second.
Okay. Any corrections, any comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
4-0. All right, next up, we have good news.
Yes, I was going to say, there's no students that can take all of their good, fun stuff that they're not here for. So a couple of things. Let me start off with this American Regions Math League. So our math students at CHS are part of the math team club. This is above and beyond the math team, that these students have committed to be part of this program where they go once a month down to Canton and they compete. I don't remember Dick Olson, but apparently he was a former math teacher at the high school. Do you remember him?
Yes.
He's their coach. So that's exciting. And what has happened is we've had 5 students that are part of this team, but Aiden Hennessy, and he was one of the students, and he actually scored the highest individual score, which was a 7 out of 10, and as a first-time person in this league, I guess that's outstanding, because in Massachusetts, the highest team was 8 out of 10, and the highest score nationwide is 9 out of 10. So for a first time being part of this league, that's a pretty great accolade. So these kids, like I said, are above and beyond what they're doing with the math team in their classes, and they seem to be really enjoying it with their coach. Last night, 161 kindergartners and grade 1 students from the Chelmsford Public Schools signed up for their summer reading last night at the Chelmsford Public Library. This was hosted by the reading department. Each one of them got their new little library cards, very exciting. And it was a great event. 161 was huge for a turnout, so we really appreciate the reading department putting that together. The teachers right now are obviously getting geared up for the end of the school year, but the end of the school year doesn't really end for teachers because they're usually part of professional development, and they're starting to work on those collaborations and when they're going to be meeting. Some of the highlights include the 5 through 8 teachers will be working on biology PD. The civics project preparation is happening for our 8th and 11th grade students, and of course our one-to-one computer rollout. So there's lots of happenings in the schools, even though school is out. Last week there was the annual mock car crash for the CHS seniors. This is obviously an important message for our students. It happens yearly as they enter prom season, as they enter life in general, and the dangers that come along with drinking and driving. So that was well received. The students understood the message. What's interesting, even with that, is that we've had people that have had, personal incidences that work for our school district, and they get up and speak to these students. So there's that personal piece that it's not just the situation that happens, it's happened to people that they know. So we appreciate that. And then obviously it's senior week at CHS. You might not want to drive around the area. They have everything from cookouts to banquets. Prom is tomorrow night. Stay away from the center of Chelmsford. And obviously, graduation is this Saturday, so we'd like to congratulate the class of 2019, and we look forward to seeing them this Saturday. And lastly, Dr. Lang and I thought it was important to highlight the collaborative relationship that we have with the Chelmsford Police Department and the Chelmsford Fire Department. A lot of these things I speak of, they're there with us hand in hand. So anything from the mock trial to our Alice drills, they help us with, I made this name up, but it was happening today. It's called Pull the Police Card. I just want you to know I made that up. So Officer Sullivan, who's one of our school resource officers, was at McCarthy during their field day, and the kids were able to go over and be able to they pulled the police car. So we appreciate that. And if it wasn't for these relationships, a lot of the things that were happening in our schools would not, be as robust as they are. And that's it for good news.
Anybody else have any good news?
Just with regards to the mock car crash, I believe that we have some community partners in that as well, beyond the police and fire departments.
Oh, Dolan Funeral Home
Donates their time.
is always part of that as well. They provide us, unfortunately, with the hearse and everything else that goes with that. And they've also been connected to the schools because it's my understanding that Mr. Dolan himself was one of our teachers to grade 6 at our middle school. So we appreciate that as well. Thank you for reminding me.
Trinity too, I think, right?
Yep, Trinity. Yes, yeah, see. Good thing I have you.
And the towing company.
And the towing, Christopher's Towing.
Christopher's Towing.
Yes.
It's really great that they all
No, I appreciate that.
donate their time to do that.
Exactly, because it's an important event.
Yeah.
All right, we're now to our public input part of our meeting. If anyone would like to speak to the committee about any of the items on tonight's agenda, please come forward, state your name for the recording secretary. Guess not. Okay. All right, so moving on to new business.
Great. A couple of announcements early on this evening. We have recently completed our interview and selection process for our second two assistant principals at the elementary school level who are going to be joining us in the fall. If you recall, last year, we were able to fund two assistant principal positions. Betsy Dolan and Jason Romalo came on board, and they split between two schools over the course of this past year. And we were fortunate enough this year in the budget to be able to add two additional positions, so we have two new individuals to fulfill those roles. So we'd like to introduce them to you this evening. First, Donna Omabono, who is a teacher, come on up, Donna, at Harrington Elementary School, so you'll be familiar with Donna. Donna is actually going to be the assistant principal at Center Elementary School next year, so making a little bit of a change, but we're very excited about that. Donna's been with the district in a number of different positions for over 20 years. And
15 years in Chelmsford.
15 in Chelmsford?
15.
Sorry. Brings a wealth of knowledge, and I think is really just going to be outstanding. And at Harrington Elementary School, Ms. Karen Grabowski is going to be joining us. And Karen currently works in the Lexington Public Schools as a speech-language pathologist. So both Rob Aslan, the principal of Harrington, and Diana Fulrita, the principal of Center, are here tonight to support their new assistant principals. And very much happy you're coming on board. We're really looking forward to this and excited about having the team be fulfilled for the fall. And love to give you an opportunity just to, do a little introduction of yourself, say a few words if you'd like. And really looking forward to having you come on board after July 1st.
You can
Oh,
start.
go ahead,
Oh,
Donna.
sorry.
You're so long, go ahead.
Fine. Well, here's a good thing. Many of them already know me because I've been in district for 15 years. I've been at Harrington for 15 years. I started out in CHIPS. I also taught second grade for the past 13 years. Taught sixth grade special ed in Woburn. I served in the Peace Corps. I was a parent volunteer at Byam for years while my kids were at Byam. And I had gone through the process of getting my administration certification. So I actually applied last year. I was still going through the process, and here I am. I'm excited.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's great.
I'm Karen Grabowski, and I have spent the past 14 years in Lexington Public Schools. I work at the Mariah Hastings School as a speech and language pathologist. And through that role, my passion is executive function and social emotional learning. So I spent a lot of time doing that and chairing our school's PBIS committee. So I'm really excited to be taking on this new role. And for me, one of the best parts too is that I have a 21-month-old, and so this is actually shortening my commute. So I'm excited about that, and I'm excited to start working here in Chelmsford.
Congratulations.
Welcome aboard.
Anybody, any questions?
Just welcome.
Yeah, best of luck next year.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
Congratulations
She's
on
at
your
an
appointments.
amazing school. Not quite as amazing as our school.
I was lucky to meet Donna on Friday.
I'm teasing.
Congratulations to the two of you.
Thank
We're really looking forward to this, and I think you're going to be
Thank
great
you.
additions to the staff, and looking forward to a great school year. So
Thank
thank you
you.
for coming this
Thank
evening.
you.
Thank you. And we were also fortunate within the last month or so to conclude our posting and screening and hiring process for the new coordinator for world languages and exchange programs. And I will turn this over to Linda to introduce.
Jessica's going to come up. So we were very fortunate. We have Jessica Nolette. She's coming to us from the Framingham Public Schools. She also was part of a charter school down in Cambridge. She's been working as a Spanish teacher for 11 years at Framingham? as
11
well?
years total.
11 years total. And she was very excited. What she did was she coupled her professional development with her job changes, and she always took a lot of leadership roles within her school. She's been part of the Principal Advisory Committee. She's actually finishing her second master's because she wasn't punished enough for her first master's. She thought she'd go for another one, which was in school administration because her first one is in Spanish. She's already had an opportunity to meet the teachers today. She went in and visited. Did you find the teachers with the pink shirts on at
Yes, I did.
McCarthy? That was the direction I gave her. You need to
Yep.
find the teachers with the pink shirt, and she did it. And she was able to go around the high school, so she's super excited. Actually, I had put in the note for you that she had said that, I think this job was made for me in the middle of the interview. Like, you must have created this just for me. And we're like, yes, we did. So we're very excited, and we're very fortunate to be able to have her for next year. So I'm going to turn it over to Jessica. She can do a quick announcement.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to be a part of the Chelmsford Public Schools and to help grow the World Language Program. I have a lot of experience leading student trips abroad, and I'm really excited to build your cultural exchange program here in the district. So thank you for having me.
Great, thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Yep, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. What's that?
I didn't get my picture,
Oh,
because I was too
you wanna
busy
have her come
talking.
back and take a picture?
Yeah, I'm not gonna make her do that.
All right, moving on the agenda this evening, we, again, typically do a monthly spotlight, so this evening we have Robin Adams from the Community Education Program, so we'd like to invite Robin up. And Stephanie is with Robin, correct? Yep, come on up.
You get the
I think this is actually the first time that our Community Education Program has presented over the last couple of years. And it's timely with all the different activities that are going on, both at the Community Ed Building and Summerfest and different activities. So Robin and Stephanie here to talk a little bit about some of the programming over at the Community Ed Program.
Excellent. Thank you very much for having us. I took over the position as director about a year and a half ago, a little bit under a year and a half. But I was fortunate enough to have worked there 10 years prior to it in different roles. So we came into a good relationship where I already knew what was going on. And the previous directors who were before me, Connie Silva and Karen Martin, left me in really good shape to have a solid foundation and be able to take our own touches onto community ed. And Stephanie has joined us just about a year. So she's been taken on as the assistant director role and working together to make it ours. So we did a quick presentation because we know you've done these all year. So we want extra points for being fast. So what we started with was our new logo. This was one of the things we were excited about. We're really looking to create relationships within the school district between community ed. So we reached out to Bree. I apologize, I don't know how to say her last name very well. Becky. And she's one of our art teachers at the high school, and she had our students come up with different logos, and they brought them back to me. We talked about what our vision was and what we wanted community ed to look like. And so she came back with a few of them. We liked pieces of each. She tweaked them and put them together, and that's our new logo. We're very excited about it. For those of you who didn't know, we used to just have a big C and an E and this kind of old-fashioned lion that just didn't feel very modern to us, and I like the people together.
Try the other side.
Yeah, actually, you're right. So I wanted to start with talking about what community ed does. I think each town has a different community education program and offers different activities. Ours has been combined several years ago with the rec department, so we are a little bit different than some other towns. We have early childhood programs. We have the Lions Den preschool at the high school. We have the Lions Pride preschool at our program at the community education building. We offer adult ed classes that include karate. We did a Mediterranean cooking that was sold out this year. We had a beginner cooking class where a lot of single gentlemen came in and learned some basic kitchen skills, which was fun. Art classes, a little bit of everything. So each semester we have people call us and say, can you offer Spanish? And that's one of the requests for next year. So we're going to try and get a Spanish teacher to come in. So that's one piece of us. Our summer programs include Summer Fest, which is a picture of the shaving cream. That's an actual picture from our program where we did a shaving cream party, and that's for our elementary children. And then enrichment and recreation. I want to just take a minute to talk about that because I think that's part that a lot of people in the community don't really know what we do. We have music lessons that are run in collaboration with the Fine Arts Department of the public school. So Christy Whitsley works with us to hire music teachers so students in the public school who need extra attention can come and do lessons through us. We have sports lessons, clinics. We do the basketball league in the summer at the high school it's kind of a pickup basketball league, a little less competitive, more fun and hands-on for kids who don't want the real strong competition that are in some of the other leagues in town. And we're doing golf lessons this year through Skyhawks. We're offering flag football, a little bit of everything. So our real goal is to really meet the needs of our youngest students who are 18 months, who are in the water table, all the way through senior citizens who come and want to go on a trip with their neighbor and don't want to drive to another place, so they come with us and meet all of our needs. Or we try to meet their needs, I should say. I'm going to turn over to Stephanie.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the finances and revenue for our programs. So Extended Day is our largest program. That's, for people listening, is the before and after care at the 4 elementary schools and Parker Middle School. which is also available to kids at McCarthy. They take a bus over. So that's a very, very popular program. Like Robin said, we have the Lions Den Lions Pride. That's about $500,000 a year. Adult education has been picking up. It seems small when you look at the number compared to the childcare, but actually this year, we are at 176, I think, last year. It was like $90,000 for like just the adult ed. The music program was about 45, now it's around 60. So it's going up quite a bit. We have a new adult education coordinator who's been really invested in Andrea Worrell. She's done a great job getting some new vendors in, has a lot of energy and is excited about the programs. And the music program, Christy Whittlesley, our current music coordinator, Kathy Orchard, they invested more in some classes at the different sites. Like you can take some music lessons at an elementary school for some of the schools, which is very convenient for parents because they just pick their children up later. Summerfest obviously is a very popular one too. So the Lions Pride and Summerfest, Lions Pride is so popular that there's pretty much always a waiting list, and it's the same way this year. Summerfest is similar. We opened our registration earlier, and a lot of our days are full already. And typically we start a lot later. When do we start? Maybe.
Typically beginning of June.
Yeah.
End of May, beginning of
So
June.
we launched earlier with a new program that we have online we'll talk about later. But it's very successful and it's engaging for the kids and it's fun and it's a safe, great place for kids to go.
We want to focus on 4 pieces of things that are new at ComEd. One is our online registration, which we're going to talk a little bit more about. Stephanie's going to go to the next slide. The next is our playground, which I know you got a sneak peek at, and we're going to go through some pictures. Our STEM classroom and Summer Quest. Back to you.
So, we have a new web-based recreation management software called MyRec. Prior to that, we had we were using prior to this was called Easy Care. It was a lot more complicated. It was a separate website. It was kind of old. You went on there. It wasn't very user-friendly. Each year, a family would have to basically recreate their entire profile. This system is fantastic. It's much more easy to use.
I just have to come out
It's
of
gonna
it
show
and
us.
pull it
Thank
up.
you.
So,
Bear with me.
Yeah. Thank you.
so this is what it looks like now. And you'll see here, you can create a new account. And that account, kind of like if you buy something online at a store, you create a profile, an account, and then you can go back to that and reuse it. It's the same thing. Each year, the family just goes back in, and not only is it child care programs, but the adult education, the music class, everything is one place. And you can go and you can look for things for your entire family, which is fantastic. And if you click on that programs link up there, you'll see that we have it listed based on the time of year. Like you'll see most of them are summer now up there. But if you had a kid in preschool, it gives you a list of all the things for preschool students. If you scroll down, it does some of our child care programs during the year are listed further down, as well as adult trips. But it's a much easier system to use, and we're hoping it increases business all around because I might come on there registering my kid for extended day and then say, oh, look, I didn't realize there was a program, in the summer for preschool, or there's a high school basketball league. So we're hoping that there'll be some cross-pollination there, and also it's much easier to make payments. Right now we get a lot of checks, which is a lot of manpower, people depositing checks. It's not very convenient. And now it's a much easier way. You go in, you register, you can pay online. It's much more simple. And it also becomes much more easy. There's less outstanding debt as well, because a lot of times people will forget their checks, or we can set up auto pay with this system. So it's we're very happy right now. It's a learning curve. But they're working with us. They're very adaptive to whatever. They'll create new systems. And with our extended day, where it was a little more complicated, different sites, they've worked with us and they've made it work. So we're very happy.
So when you have some free time, if you just click on anything in there, it'll bring you to a description of what it is, when it's offered, the price, and then you just put in your cart like you're shopping online. So it's gonna be fantastic. Now the fun stuff, the new playground. We are really thrilled to have gotten the approval through this committee and the administration to spend a little of the money that was in our revolving account for our new playground. We worked with the director of CHIPS and created a playground that meets the need of all ages in our building. We currently have 18-month-old children all the way through school age, and in the summer we'll have some teenagers there with our Summer Quest program. So the design that we created has actually 3 separate areas. There's an enclosed toddler space with age-appropriate handicapped accessible materials. There's a preschool area that is the largest space because they're there the most amount of the time during the year, and then a school age portion as well. So I put some fun pictures in here because the kids have had a blast with this. This is truly a picture from demo day. When the trucks came and ripped out our old equipment, we thought the kids would be traumatized, but they were so excited. So we had our kids lined up on the bench watching the trucks. They loved seeing them come in and pull out the pieces that were left. You know, it's interesting watching a toddler trying to explain that the playground is coming does not mean in 20 minutes. It doesn't mean after nap. It doesn't mean right after lunch. But they've been able to watch the process, which is pretty exciting. And it was nice as well because we were able to work with our staff, the CHIP staff, as well as the community ed staff, and really get their input. And some of the things they were looking for was a natural playscape with less bright colors. So for kids with sensory challenges, we wanted to make it accessible to more students. And we wanted to make it just natural looking. So with the colors we picked are navy blue and dark blues and greens and tans, again, trying to build into our landscape so that it doesn't stand out. These are some pictures of our big climbing structures, which are a little more traditional, but we have different ones in each of the areas. Another thing we worked on, and Russ and I were really adamant about this, was spreading out a lot of smaller pieces of equipment rather than one big piece so that the kids would get off the equipment and move and get some physical exercise. You know, there's some beautiful big structures where the kids go on it and they stand because they're on the bridge in the middle of this big structure. And it was interesting going through the process because a lot of the companies, their goal is to have the kids not put their feet on the ground. They wanted to connect from this to this to this, and we wanted them to spread out. We're very fortunate to have such a big space that we want the kids moving. We want them running, we want them crawling, doing everything they can do out there. A couple more pictures. So we have that nice climbing wall that's going to be on the school age side. The picture on the right with the tube is for preschool, but again, same color frame. This we had to put in here because this was the most exciting day, was the day the truck arrived with the dinosaur. In the middle picture is Charlotte, our custodian, who wanted to show you how big the dinosaur was. She is a petite woman anyways, but the goal was what we wanted is that now that they've placed it, the head is there, then the rib cage, and then the tail, so it really looks like there's a buried skeleton of a dinosaur, and the eggs are around it with some different stomping logs for the kids to go on. So this is what we picture the children doing. We want them to be in it. We want them to be on it. It's made of really heavy concrete and cement that if the teenagers come here on the weekend and are climbing on there, it's going to be fine. We don't want that community, but we're realistic. And then we move on to STEM. STEM was another exciting investment this year where we had an extra classroom upstairs for our preschool space that we wanted to make into a specialty interest area. So we invested some money and made it into a STEM classroom for science, technology, engineering, math. So some of the pictures here are just showing that we do a lot of education of young children. People often hear we're Lions Pride Preschool or they call us daycare and think that it's maybe what we went to daycares when we were kids. We're a school for young kids, and I think this is a good example. So the picture right here was talking about germs, and they put glitter on their hands and had to go wash them and then see how many pieces of glitter were still on their hands and talk about where it went and how it got through the classroom. Again, fun, learning, but it's learning. And this one, which I thought was fabulous, I wish I could take credit for it, was the light table. So the table that they're looking at has illumination below, and so they used the earthworms and they could see the insides of the earthworm through the light and hold the earthworm out. His face is excited. But this, you know, this is the type of activities that go on there, and we're able to have our toddlers, you know, the girl on the right is one of our youngest students, all the way through our children who are entering kindergarten and do the same materials, just enhance what they're doing. exploring pulleys, doing sound waves. The girls on the right have
Light-speed.
different, yeah.
That's more my speed.
That's, what if there were worms in the bowl? You know, the bowls on the right are covered with saran wrap, and they have different sounds, and when they drop things, what it does. Pulleys, the boy on the right decided to make an elevator and was working with the teacher to try and use a pulley to make something go up and down with a lot of work and a lot of focus on it. That was what they wanted to do. The building bonanza, I know this little boy's face is a little out of focus, but I had to put it in there because that's what we want to see. We want to see a child that excited, and by putting all the materials into one STEM classroom, they have a different exposure. They have blocks in their classroom, but it's a small amount. They have a small amount of everything. This room is all about just STEM. On the right is when we got our garden table, and they saw that the teacher was trying to build it, and they asked if they could help build it, so we said, sure. So I don't know how much they helped with the project, but they were invested and excited. And then just hands-on learning. On the left there, had a skunk come visit the classroom, and our toddlers on the right are checking which things can roll and which things cannot roll. And then we move on to our older students. So Summer Quest is a new program. That was one of our initiatives this year. And I put that picture of the two teenagers because how many of us have seen teenagers who look like that? They're on their phones, their heads are down, they're not talking to each other. We really felt there was a need in the community for something for teenagers to do that's a little more open-ended and a little more freedom than some of the traditional camps for the kids who don't want to be home, or maybe the parents don't want them home on Fortnite, or whatever game is the hit game of the week, or on their phones like that. So Summer Quest is a new program that's geared for children who've completed 5th grade or going into 9th grade. So they have to have done 1 year of middle school. And they go on a field trip every single day. It's for 6 weeks. And each week we've designed to have 2 really fun trips. There's boat aboard, there's this gym, there's Canopy Lake Park, we're going to Fenway. There's a couple days that we get outdoors and we do hiking or Walden Pond or something, so that again, the kids aren't just doing the same thing. And then the last day we do a community service project. We're working with the open spaces in town. We're working with our playground coordinator to have the kids go help do things in the community. And then half the day is they go to one of the local lakes and do swimming and have an afternoon of fun after they do a little work. It's had great reviews. Some of our weeks are filled. We have some that we're still enrolling people, so we've got 1 more week we're going to take kids in. And what's nice about this is parents have the opportunity to decide what their child can do. So if their child is more independent, they can sign a waiver that they can go with a buddy to Canopy and go walk around and check in with us every couple hours. Whereas at Summerfest, they walk with the teacher, with a group, and we stay very close to them. But these are 7th and 8th graders, and they might have that ability. If the parents do not feel they're ready for that, we have counselors and we walk with those kids. So I think it's a nice combination for kids who are ready for a little more freedom. As a mother of 2 children in middle school, they don't want to hang around with me at Canopy Lake Park. If they can go with their friends and just check in for money, that's what they prefer to do. So this will give parents hopefully the freedom that their kids get to do these fun activities and they don't have to pay for themselves to watch them.
How many children on average per week are signed up for that program?
We're only taking 40, so there's a couple weeks we're at 38, and then there's a couple weeks that we just have 10, 12. The 4th of July week is very low. Looking back on it, we probably wouldn't offer that next year
Right.
because it's a shorter week. I think it depends on which activities are being run too, because it's new. So the last week that's most popular has Fenway and Canopy Lake and something else. So I think the parents pick that as like, you're getting the most bang for your buck for the money.
Right.
But I've talked to other families who chose the weeks with the hiking because they want their kids outside. They don't want them just doing the park. So as we move on, we're going to have to kind of figure out what meets the most needs of the most families.
What are the hours for that?
It's from 8 to 3, but we offer extended care after that for an additional price for a little. And then looking ahead, like I said, we're in great shape. We are very fortunate to come to this organization and the place it's at. So we're looking to increase our classes and really meet the needs of the community. We're looking for feedback if people have interest that they want to see us offering through community ed. Doing events and festivals, things that we can bring people together. Doing a scarecrow festival at our building, or having a open play day with the new playground, things like that, that, again, positive, free community comes together. And working on the collaboration between the schools and community ed. We've worked on a few things already. We have a few up our sleeve that we're working with teachers who have grants who need the community ed part of it to make their grant feasible. So And then offering more enrichment for the children who are in our program. You know, as Stephanie talked about, extended day is very profitable, so we want to bring in some more special guests and some visitors and put the money back into those kids and those families who are investing in the program. And that's it. Questions?
I just had a couple. Do you coordinate at all with the library around their children's activities or for advertising and things like that to kind of get the word out about what activities you're offering?
We have not done that in the past.
And I also know the farmer's market was going, when they're begin on, it's not this Saturday, I think it's a week from Saturday, they're going to be having children's activities as well
Oh,
at each
interesting.
of the farmer's markets. So I didn't know if also maybe some advertising there, because I mean, these are fantastic programs. And if you were looking for ways to get the word out, these might be some places that parents naturally go to bring their kids.
Great idea. Yeah, excellent.
One of the, just an idea, a comment, it's something different.
little
but
echoey.
I
It's
like-
echoey,
okay.
kind of,
Exactly,
I'm not
just,
sure.
yeah, you don't have to be too close.
But one of the thoughts is, I've been working a lot with the English language learners group in the school system. And I know in some communities, there's special community education offerings that gear themselves towards the English language learner, especially in the summer. Because many times they're coming into the system late in the year, and they'd like to be able to continue to learn the English language more extensively during the summer. So just some thoughts on that, maybe consider talking to the coordinators who deal with that. And then the other thing is maybe for the adults who are in those families, things like citizenship class or English language learning for the adult in the community might be something interesting to do
Excellent.
and a great offering.
Love it. Yeah. We're looking for new ideas. I think a lot of the stuff that community ed offers has just been offered, so we're trying to bring in new stuff. So anything, anybody hears in the community, or just shoot us an email, and if we can find an instructor to do it.
So just a comment, I did go on and sign one of my children up for the STEM program, and I did find your website very easy to use. It was excellent.
Fabulous.
So it was really good. And the other thing is, it was great to see that and the age offering. So usually in the past, I've been looking at Middlesex Community College, for instance, for those offerings, and this time it was your program. So I think that was really good, more local, wonderful.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. And a lot of times they're pretty expensive.
Yes,
So
extremely.
it's really nice that we're offering that.
Love
So,
it.
thank you.
I appreciate it. Our goal is to offer preschool and elementary and a teen activity every week of summer. And like I said, we're just trying to put them all in the pot this year and see which stick, and then move forward and see which are the most positive. But the STEM one that is very
That's
positive.
very good.
Yeah.
Now, the other new addition is the air conditioning. What will that allow you to do that you weren't able to do?
It's going to allow us to have Summerfest at our building. So Summerfest is the giant program we offer for the elementary children. And year to year, we've moved to different schools, which has given just different challenges moving the furniture, moving out their furniture. By having it in-house with our building, we needed air-conditioned space for them. So we just air-condition the upstairs rooms, and we're going to, when Lions Pride ends, the preschool, empty out their classrooms, put in our school-age equipment, and then let the program run there. So
It'll be interesting just to see, the stability for the program, where they can operate now year-round out of that building, how well it's received.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to be helpful. I think, it's a nice facility. It's got a park in the back, and with the new playground too, I really think it's going to be enticing to families to be able to do everything right there at that school, so it'll be interesting.
yeah. And
How are we doing timeline-wise on both the AC installation and the playground?
we're on track from what I'm being
Okay.
told.
Okay.
I don't know if they tell me if they're not, but they're telling me they're on track and we're in good
Well,
shape.
I figured off the top of my head, what was the dates we were looking for? Was it right
July
around?
1 was the
July
cutoff
1,
for
okay.
both, but I think the AC is going to be done sooner than that. They were
Good.
up a couple weeks earlier.
The other comment on that is, I think it's also good for the other buildings, because I remember when we were at Center and Summerfest would come into Center, then Center can't update certain rooms, do certain things that need to be done during the summer and so on.
Yeah.
So it works both ways. It's just not a convenience just for Summerfest. It's also good for the other buildings, in my opinion, so
Yeah.
I think it was good.
Yeah. And it's going to be nice because if a family has a preschooler, a school-age student, and a teenager, they can all drop them off at at the Comment Building. It'll be one drop off. Here's all my children. Take them, I'm going away. I'm not going to work, I'm just going away. So that's going to be fantastic.
Looked
one
at
of
your
your bus
budget, to be honest. I haven't not looked at your budget and seen, I don't know if that's something that we deal with at all here. But are you basically self-sustaining as an organization?
Yeah, they're a part of the Chelmsford Public Schools. Their budget appears in the revolving fund account, so when you see that kind of attachment sheet, they're in there. And they're fully sustaining themselves, all salaries and benefits and costs, and they've actually built up some reserves over the years. So we've been able to tap some of those reserves to pay for the air conditioning in the building and to pay for the playground, so reinvesting in the program.
That's
But
great.
it's a great all around. So,
All right, anybody else, any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you
That
very
was
much for
great
coming.
information.
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
And, all right, so moving on to the agenda, item number 4. This had come up a little bit at the last meeting. Did you want to touch on it?
Yep, sure. Thank you so much. So last meeting, we had learned about the support from the Select Board about about their proclamation. And we wanted to make sure as a school district that we were supporting that in our schools and letting our community know that we, agree with this and this is something we want to support for students. So in order to do that, one of the first things we did was reach out to Lorraine Wilson, who is our Department Coordinator for Social Emotional Learning and School Counseling, as well as Dr. Whittlesey, because this was her dissertation topic and is something that she is very passionate about and works with students. So one of the ideas were to actually get the proclamation itself, a nice clean copy of it. They were able to blow it up into a larger size, like 11 by 15, to be able to be displayed at the schools. When I talked to Town Manager Cohen, he had said that a lot of that stuff was already with the Snow family, Mara Snow and Patrick Snow. So I reached out to them and they were extremely helpful. They got us the nice copy of that. They gave us color copies. They also brought us some of the flags that we could display inside our schools and talk to our students and just have them understand that we support this. This is something that's important to us and for our schools and for our students, and that we wanted to make sure that we had a Pride Month as well within our buildings. So between Lorraine and Christy, they've been doing an excellent job. They've been running around to the different schools, visiting, talking with the principals, talking about how this could be, rolled out in their school. I mean, I know we only have about 5 more days left, but it's still for a full month, and, people will be in their buildings. So we thought this was an important piece, and we appreciate being part of it with the Select Board.
Questions? No? Okay. Item number 5 this evening is just a look ahead for the coming year, just a proposed school committee meeting calendar. Debbie helped produce this for us. Typically, the school committee meets on the first and third Tuesdays of each month. So if you look at the attached dates that go from July till next June, the only changes to that are as follows. So in July, we never meet on the first Tuesday in July. We typically only meet at the second meeting of the month. The second meeting of the month would be the 16th, but it's so close to the end of the fiscal closing for us that we're recommending, and there's also 5 Tuesdays in July, we're recommending pushing that meeting to the 23rd, just to give the business office a little bit of extra time to do the final warrants and payments in case we need to come forward with a transfer or any kind of financial report. So that's the one change in July. August, September, October, November, December don't change. The other changes we are recommending are February and April school vacation week. Typically, instead of having it on the third Tuesday, we just bump it out a week. So the dates I put on there are the fourth Tuesday of those 2 months. Aside from that, the only other meeting that we added on there was first meeting in April. We don't meet because it's the town election. That Thursday evening, typically we gather just for the reorganization meeting, and that first meeting in April gets pushed to the second week. I know I've said a lot, but it's the first and third Tuesdays of the month with those exceptions. So just recommend this for consideration, and if you approve it, we just advertise it on the district website, put this on the district calendar, and then we notify Chelmsford Telemedia just so that they have a schedule to know when they're going to be televising our meetings.
Okay. Anybody would like to make a motion?
I move that we approve the school committee meeting schedule for 2019, 2020.
Any seconds?
Second?
Any questions or any comments on this? Is everybody comfortable with moving the July meeting to the 23rd? It originally was on the 16th, so everybody's good with that?
Yeah, this makes sense.
All right, so we'll meet the 18th, and then we'll be off for a little bit. And
Meet the 23rd.
we meet the 23rd, okay?
Yep.
All right, all in favor? Aye. 4-0.
Next item, Dennis, is just a discussion on the school committee summer workshops.
Yeah, so last meeting, I just wanted to put out there if there was any interest in having MASC come in again, as they did last summer, to do a workshop. So I gave you a list of possible workshops, and if people had a chance to take a look at it and see if there's anything that looked of interest, or if not, I mean, you know, one of our goals as a committee was to get a little bit more professional development, whether it be conferences or workshops, that type of thing. So, any thoughts on the list, or any thoughts on workshops people have?
No, I think, I like the team building one, again, and improving lines of communication.
So, similar to what we did last year? So
Similar, yeah.
Would you want to frame anything in particular? Because I'm sure we could get it.
Well, I think the last time she was here, we just basically, we did the first part, and I think actually may have been the test drive for the second part of what
Communication part
yes.
was new. Yeah.
So, to maybe look at going
Okay.
into a little bit more depth with that. But I'm also not opposed to doing more than one. You know, that might be a good one to start, and then to add something else beyond that. But I think it's a good, a good foundation.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Maria, anything? School finance one, I mean, we're good at that. That's the only other one I'm thinking. It just,
Yeah, I think we.
it's so confusing, you know, at this point, but
What's confusing?
it just, there's one on school financing, talk about the foundation budget,
Oh.
jumped to 70 and how it's changing and all that. And
Is there
If you
anything on
ever-
strategic planning?
what's that?
I don't know
Is
that
there
that's one
anything
of
on
their-
strategic planning?
I believe that overview one that Dorothy did for us kind of talks
Yeah.
a little bit about, again, it gets into like roles, responsibilities,
Yeah.
and even just kind of like charting the direction or setting the direction for the district,
That's
which
good.
I think is a little piece of that.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
probably
I don't
installing the
think we had
infrastructure.
gotten into a lot of depth in that particular workshop. I think
Right.
we had actually talked about having her come out and going into a little bit more depth the next time.
Yeah, okay. All right, so,
But the one on school finance, that actually may be a topic worth having for a public forum. I know that it's a completely different subject, but there has been a lot of interest in that, so if we were to do something, I'd rather do it as part of that.
Yeah, the only thing it's not that I'm opposed to it, the only thing I might recommend, if you wanted to do one on school finance or Chapter 70, any kind of grants related to Chelmsford, it may be worth actually having, someone kind of come in and work with us on doing a whole workup just of Chelmsford and Chapter 70, historically, what's happened to it, what are the big drivers in the formula. There's limited people in the state that fully understand the Chapter 70 formula, but, we could potentially even contract with someone to come and do a Chelmsford profile and kind of how we're affected, and then have that either as a report for the school committee, or it could evolve into like a community forum. But I think you might want to get more into the specifics of Chelmsford. I think the MASC course is the overarching kind of, it's very general about Chapter 70. I don't know that it would really, like they would do a report on Chelmsford,
I
which you
would like
might
to do
find.
that, because I think that, especially as we're thinking about our strategic plan, and some of the other initiatives that, we want to undertake over the next several years, I think it's important for the community to understand some of the obstacles that we face around finance.
Sure.
So I think that would be a great idea.
and I like the idea, because there's all sorts of changes being proposed, but what does it mean for Chelmsford,
Right.
Because I know it may not benefit Chelmsford that much.
Yeah, there are elements that do and elements that don't.
Right, that's why, so
Right.
that'd be great to kind of know what the different parts of that are, so, okay. All right, so I will reach out to our field rep and try to set something up, maybe for some of that vacant time in July or something,
Sure.
or August, and, okay. All right, great.
I'll coordinate with you, Joe. And I enjoy the school finance stuff, so I don't mind
Yeah.
getting into that a little bit, too. Great. Item number 7 on the agenda this evening is just a follow-up from our previous meeting. We had a report, and Cheryl Kirkpatrick, our Director of Personnel and Professional Learning, was here to talk a little bit about substitute staffing in the district, how we go about advertising, number of subs that we have, general requirements, and the conversation about allowing for day-to-day, for individuals with associate's degrees to be considered on a case-by-case basis to be substitute teachers, as opposed to just being allowed to substitute for paraprofessionals or aides in the building, was discussed. So I basically just crafted a little motion. We didn't have one crafted that evening because we wanted to get just some discussion and community input on that. But the vote is actually just listed on the form. I don't know if you'd like to have follow-up discussion, or if that's something that you're willing to and interested in supporting. I'd recommend that as the motion, and then that can be taken into consideration as we start up our recruitment efforts for the new school year.
So, can I ask a question?
Yeah, you want to ask before we? Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, I don't think the memo was updated at all in terms of what constitutes, it would be for substitutes that are temporary. So what is a temporary substitute? How many days?
No, the memo wasn't updated. I just attached it. The new cover memo is new.
Oh, okay.
I just gave you a copy of the report, so you didn't have to flip back to it. But what we're talking about was day-to-day substitutes. So those are typically substitutes that are hired up to a 2-week period or 10 days.
2 weeks. Okay.
Beyond 2 weeks, typically we then get into a situation where we're hiring a long-term sub.
My other question was, in the memo, it seemed to indicate whether we wanted to consider possibly raising the rate of pay.
Yeah, that's something to be looked at. It wasn't a recommendation in the report. It just talks about not only our efforts, but other districts in the area attracting day-to-day subs, keeping your pool as fresh and really attracting people to the district. That's something that Cheryl can work on over the summer. A survey of other districts in our area, what their current rates are. We want to entice people to come here in the very best that we can. So if she, were to find something in the data that would support some type of an increase, we could bring that forward for discussion.
I did receive a couple of comments from folks in our area who have been substitutes in the past and who have come into the schools as substitutes. 2 comments. One comment was that sometimes when people apply and they want to go to they're not allowed, they can't go to a particular school because they may have children in another school, making sure they get there on time and so on. So for example, a parent who has a child in elementary school but could be a substitute in our system is not going to really be able to do a substitute at the high school because it's a later start time and so on. So those types of thoughts, and whether anything can be worked in schedules, probably not, but that was a thought. And then the other thing that I got as a comment is that a lot of times substitutes come in thinking they're going for a particular assignment and suddenly don't have that assignment, have something else, throws them off totally, and then they just don't want to return. And one of the ones that was mentioned to me as one that really can turn people off is suddenly going into a high school and having 3 or 4 classes in one room that they're substituting for because there are not enough substitutes that day, and that really will throw them off. So it's just thought.
Yeah, the latter comment that you made, I don't see that honestly happening too frequently. There obviously will be points of the year where you have difficulty getting subs in the building. This does happen at the elementary, the middle, and the high school level. Someone may go into the system and accept a job or a particular position, and they report to school that morning. But given the other amount of absences, or another class may not have been covered, the principal or whoever the building admin needs the flexibility of being able to move people around to make sure that all of our classes are covered. So that is an issue, because sometimes people will think, oh, I'm going to go be this particular teacher for the day. But if there is a need at the school for them to be flipped around, that does happen. How often, I honestly don't know, but I do know that the schools, need to retain some rights to be able to do that, to be able to just make sure that all the classes are covered.
Right.
So it does happen.
It would be nice to have enough substitutes so that we don't have that kind of large coverage in the high school and so on. But
Right.
so I can see if maybe we increase the rate offering or we do something else, and adding this in seems to be a good idea. as long as it's for short-term people, so I don't have a problem with it. But I would look
Yeah,
at the rate as well.
I don't think it would hurt, this will hurt recruitment efforts, it might just open up some other opportunities for us. And, but the rate discussion is, we'll definitely do research on, but I think that's a secondary discussion, just to figure out how competitive we are based on, the market in our area.
Right.
So we will work on that.
All right. Al, would you like to make a motion?
I move that the Director of Personnel be granted the ability to evaluate candidates on a case-by-case basis who have attained an associate's degree to serve as substitute teachers beginning in the 2019-2020 school year.
Second?
Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
Great, thank you. Item 8 on the agenda this evening is a vote that it's an annual vote that the school committee takes to appoint your board member to the Valley Collaborative. Traditionally, this is a role that the superintendents have played, so I've served as the appointee for the Valley Collaborative Board of Directors for the last 4 years. I really enjoy actually doing it, and would like to ask your permission, or not your permission, but ask you to vote to appoint me again to serve as the rep on the board. So again, it's just it's an annual vote you have to take to appoint your representative to the board.
I move that we appoint Dr. Lang to the Valley Collaborative Board of Directors.
Second?
Okay, any questions, comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you. Yeah, there's usually not too much pushback from school committee members fighting for
Another
that one.
meeting?
I really enjoy it. Even when I was in Lowell, I was on the GLEC board, and then obviously we came to Chelmsford, it was a different collaborative, but I very much enjoyed the program.
It's a good group, too.
It is a good
Yeah.
group, yeah, it's good. Thank you. So, item number 9, this is actually just a follow-up from our last school committee meeting when we had kind of set the parameters and timelines around the evaluation process for me for the finishing the current school that you were in. I had provided you with a year in review, summary and highlights of our work. Dr. Hirsch had walked us through the strategic plan, year 2 goals, our progress we made on those. And I indicated that the school committee had some kind of professional practice goals. I also had professional practice goals last year. And then I would provide a follow-up memo with just some information specific for that, just to give you another data point to be able to reference or look at as you're putting my evaluation together. I'm not going to go through it with you tonight, it's just more of a correspondence for you, but just wanted to send that along. And it just gives my thoughts on how I felt I addressed those particular professional practice goals for the year, what we're still working on, and, some of this will obviously help shape my process going forward into next year's goals development. But just wanted to convey that to you. We had asked, or kind of agreed at the last meeting, that a week from now, next Tuesday, each of the committee members would submit their evaluation to Dennis as the chair, and then he'll work on putting the cumulative report together, get that back out to everyone by the end of next week, and then that'll go on the agenda for the meeting on the 18th, I believe. So if there's anything else that comes up in the meantime, or any additional information you think would be helpful to you, please, again, reach out, set up a meeting, call, happy to provide you whatever you would like. But I hope this provides you a little bit of background, too.
Any questions on the process, now that you've seen the,
Well, I think I've gotten this memo, I've got the end of the year report
Yeah.
that you gave with some examples of how you've achieved your goals. And now I've got this,
you have the form?
yes,
Okay.
to try to fill out.
Okay.
If I meet up with obstacles on the form, I'll be reaching out to you, Dennis.
Anyone else? Donna, you good, right?
No, thank
Yeah,
you,
you've
thank
been-
you for this information.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, if there are any questions, if you need any help with the form or anything else, just reach out to me, or if you have
Okay.
more evidence, other piece of evidence or clarifications on things, superintendent, if you get it to me by next week, right, the 11th?
Yep.
And like I said before, if you can get some comments on there, great, just, kind of makes it easier to write that final report too.
So once the final report is done, what is the,
Becomes public document, and,
okay,
And you vote to basically accept because you are all providing individual evaluations. Dennis then takes the individuals and creates the
kind of summative for the whole group, taking into consideration everyone's feelings and ratings. And then those are all private. So the public document that will go out is the summative for the whole school committee. So it's the cumulative report that Dennis will put together. And then you'll vote as a committee to accept that. Or not accept that, but typically you vote to
Okay.
accept it. And then that goes in record, like in my file, that then gets reported to the Department of Education, the ratings and whatnot.
Okay.
And in the process of the summative evaluation, we have an opportunity for input during that meeting as well.
Right.
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 Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
I'll, yeah, if I can get it by next week, then I'll try to get it by the end of the week. You get to take a look at it, and I could send it out, right, just as long as it's to everybody once,
The
before our
summative?
meeting, yeah, before
Yeah.
our meeting, okay. Yeah.
No, I plan on you doing that.
Okay, yeah. No, I just want to make sure we're not skirting any,
No, that, once you produce the summative, because you want them to review it to kind of show where you're coming from,
Yep.
that's fine.
Alright.
Yeah.
Great.
Great. Moving on, next is just a discussion on a district-wide communications and media strategy. I touched upon this a little bit in my review of my professional practice goal 1, which was related to communications. I do think over the course of this past year, we've actually taken a look at our internal and external communications to a point. We've been able to assess our current ways we communicate with the public, the ways we communicate with parents, and in the end, certainly I think we've made some progress last year, but there's always room to improve, and I do think we need to have some streamlined mechanisms for the way that we actually, kind of have our front face on the district, how we communicate again with different focus groups within the community, whether it be through Facebook or our website, which I think we all agree over the course of next year could use an overhaul and some changes. One of the things that I think not hurts us a little bit, but is just any district or any business for that reason that is trying to put a forward face out and be able to really communicate with members of the public or their constituent groups has to have kind of key point people within the district who are constantly evaluating the information that you're sharing, making sure that it's the appropriate information, it's timely, it's updated. Is the information that's flowing from, say, Byam Elementary School getting up to the district, getting out to the different user groups. And I do think that that's something that we struggle a bit with, because I think everyone is very well-intentioned in their actions. But we don't really have an overarching individual or individuals with the district charged with coordinating that effort. As I've talked to a bunch of different superintendents in the area and even kind of Eastern Mass, a lot of districts are really moving towards having a dedicated communications person within their districts who are responsible for all of these different things, kind of creating that communication strategy, coming up with the kind of branding or standardization of, say, your Facebook accounts, your Twitter accounts, your websites and whatnot, what kind of information we're going to put out, whether it's newsletters and linking newsletters to Facebook and the websites and whatnot. So I actually think it's something that we should consider doing. We had put an earmark in the fiscal '20 budget under the superintendent's office of $60,000 to help towards coming up with our communication strategy, updating our, again, websites, Twitter accounts, things along those lines. But I think, we're going to be kind of fumbling around with this for a little bit unless we have a dedicated person or persons who are responsible for kind of creating the strategy for us. Again, in my discussions with the other districts, a lot are moving towards a dedicated individual. So I took a look at 6 or 8 of the different job descriptions, 2 or 3 of them, which are actually posted right now, districts looking for these types of people, who are out there, and put together a job description for what I think would be a nice position for us to consider adding, to have a dedicated individual in the district to be able to do that kind of needs assessment on our communications, come up with a kind of unified platforms for our information sharing, and put that together in a job description, again, taking the best points I liked from all the various ones that are out there, which really, again, focused on, public relations, information sharing. There's certainly a marketing component, there's a community outreach component, and wanted to put this on the agenda this evening just to start to have a dialogue with you, to get a sense for if you think this is something that we should consider exploring before I went too much further down this path. So,
Any thoughts?
for discussion purposes.
So this was actually already in the budget that was approved.
The money.
Yes,
Yeah,
the
we
money,
we earmarked
yes.
money, it's already in the budget for fiscal '20. It's just how to go about really figuring out what's the best use of that particular funding, or who would do it. You know, would it be an individual who we would hire, would it be a consultant? But this would actually be like an individual we would hire and have work for us.
I mean, I like the idea of that. I like the idea of hiring someone, using that money that was already earmarked for this particular purpose, to be able to come in and to, I think the consistency is very important. And, I mean, you already know how we feel about the website, so I won't go into that. But, you know, I think in some ways it's also underutilized because some of the people who would be using it, like PTOs, just simply don't know how to get their information on the pages and whatnot. And, you know, I know going to our website and trying to find information is, it can be tricky at times, but also sometimes it just simply isn't there because people can't figure out how to do that. So I think it would be great to be able to have a place where people in the community can go. I think my only concern about adding another position is one of the things that came up in town meeting when we were talking about the number of positions that were being added as it related to benefits and retirement. I just want to, you know, be mindful of that, you know, as we go forward, because I think that is, you know, a burden that we're asking the town to assume, and I think we have to be aware of that.
Al?
I think it's great. We've made attempts in the past. You know Leslie Koreski, but she actually worked for
Yeah.
district for a little while. I think it has tremendous potential. I don't know if you all got the same mailing, but the Chelmsford Independent's not going to exist anymore. It's going to merge with Westford and Littleton, I think. And, you know, obviously the newspapers are struggling, but they were pretty good about giving us, you know, coverage for anything we needed. And I think I hate to view it as a competitive thing, but being merged with Westford, we want to have our 2 cents. You know, I mean,
Right.
it is a major means of communication for at least a major, you know, a major element in town. I think the relationship with the tech people will be really important, obviously, because the person may be very experienced in the communication field, but not the technical part that goes with it. So I would assume that would be a really close relationship in a lot of ways to make sure that they know how to get it done.
Right.
The more expertise they have themselves, the easier it will be, obviously. But I think it's crucial. It's happening. You know, everybody's doing it. I mean, you know, it's just you have to. The terms, everybody knows the terms now, branding and, you know, all these kinds of things. So it's, I think it's essential. And the other thing is, we're in a competitive field more and more now. You know, parents have to make decisions about where they want their kids to be and how many opportunities there are and so forth. And I don't think it's going to change with the political environment being what it is. I think, if anything, it may become more competitive. And so we have to realize that. I don't think we do such a good job that we have a good reception in the community, but we can't take it for granted. We have to keep putting it out there.
I think it's a great point. I mean, you're right, it is becoming competitive. And, you know, when I see the number of houses on the market right now is, and it hasn't been high over the last couple of years, but there's certainly more inventory, I think, than there has been in a while. And, you know, we want people to come to town for the school system. And so I think you're right. You know, we want to draw these people in. It helps us in the long run, you know, to have, you know, a vibrant, you know, growing community. It helps our school system. So you're right, I think.
I
We have
think
to have
another
it.
point that Mr. Thomas makes that's very important is that about the newspaper. I think these days, more and more, you self-publicize. You have to tell your own story. If you don't tell your own story, nobody's going to be reaching out to you to try to tell it for you. So I think that his point about that is extremely important, and we have to be able to communicate these things consistently and to have a strategic effort. When I read the description of the position, the thought was that I don't know if $45,000 to $60,000 is gonna bring in somebody who can do all those things. You might get a good portion of those things out of the person. The other thing is that then it becomes a consistent budgetary item, and it's just gonna continue to increase. My other thought was that this position is gonna have to focus initially pretty much on setting a strategy. Because I think the communication isn't just letting the outside know what's going on internally and telling our story. It's much more than that. It's also about communicating internally, from up to down and from down to up internally within the organization. And I don't know if this is something you're looking for in this position as well, to set that kind of strategy. For instance, we go to our public forum, we talk about that, that we have a service where people can go ahead and look up
Interface.
psychologists, whatever they need for emotional, social type of problems. And then we need to put that on our website. Well, you know what? Maybe this person can do it in the next day. That's wonderful. But instead of, telling this person it needs to be done, then going up the chain, and it takes the next 2 to 3 months to get it done. So I think that kind of strategy to keep things moving along and getting it quickly updated is extremely important. I look now at the content of some of the things we have on our site, and it goes back years. It has the names of people who have left the district, who are no longer working here. There are many things on there. And I think if we don't address that, and if we're not able to meet the standard that's really needed in this communication, it might actually even truly hurt us going forward. So I'm all in favor of addressing the issue. I think I'm not sure that we can accomplish it with this just one position immediately. It's gonna take some time, because it needs some work here. And I'm not sure that you're not gonna need additional money to deal with maybe creating and updating and upgrading the website and doing all of these things. This may not be sufficient, it's just, but it would be a position that would start working on strategy and so on. So is that your thought, that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess initially, we're obviously constrained with budget, right? But I think, given the postings that other districts have been advertising and the caliber of candidates that they've been able to attract, I think it's a good starting range for a position. I think what we would want this person to do is basically come on board and help with that assessment of where we're currently at. Are the products that we're using sufficient? Is it an issue of just information needs to be updated, different information needs to be put on, taken off, or whatnot? But have that person be part of putting a whole strategy, like you talked together, and then actually kind of, once we agree, charge them with implementing the strategy. Working with the different admin of the district, whether it's district level, school level, to have there be some cohesion between the messaging that we're putting out there. I would want our expectations to be, say we have 4 elementary schools. I would want them all to have a similar look to their sites. I would want them all producing similar information. I wouldn't want one to have a newsletter on their page and one not to, and vice versa. But I think this person could help us streamline, and even once we set the direction of where we want to go, they would then be the key person to work with each of those schools. If a school's having trouble updating data, because they're not going to be producing all the data on their own, but they could be the trainer to go out to a school and help them, or whoever's going to be responsible in their school doing some of their updating to do that. I could see this person also, once they get their feet under them and help set that vision, say we have the community forum, they would really be our PR person as well. So they could be at the community forum, producing some content for the site. They could be taking some pictures, they could be writing some stories, because as you mentioned, some of the newspapers are going away. And I do think we need to create some of our own content to be pushing PR-wise. So I think they could do that. Obviously, they're going to have a good background in a lot of different areas, but the more independent they are as kind of a writer and a publisher almost, and being able to do things electronically, I think is going to really set themselves up. But I do think that,
we'd want to try to get someone on board, ideally, over the summer, to be able to really start the assessment before school returns. And then right as we get into the fall, between fall and Christmas, the holiday break, really be able to kind of figure out where we're going and set ourselves up. Could there be additional money needed after? Yes, if we have to do another update to the website, or if we decide to do a particular branding type thing. But I think as we get into the budget year and we identify what that cost is gonna be, we can identify different, areas where we could reallocate some funding to be able to do that.
I think the superintendent said it the best, without a position like this, we are just fumbling around, because we've known that there's been some deficiencies for a while, and, everybody knows that it's just that who's gonna spend the time and go through all the different pages of the website, who's gonna develop a social media strategy, that type of thing. So I think this just gives some focus to that, because I think we all agree that this is something that, we could improve on as a district, so I think this is a good start. My only one question is, so on the description, the job description, this person gonna report directly to you, or is it?
I think it's important, in the beginning, I think it's important to be me.
Okay.
For a couple of different reasons. We put the funding in the superintendent's office. I think if this is really gonna be viewed as a district-wide initiative, I don't want this person, with so much going on in technology, to kind of get lost in the technology department as we start this. But I also want, as we're getting everyone in the district on board with supporting this person or the vision, to know that this has the approval of the superintendent's office, and the superintendent's office of the district is really kind of pushing this. So I almost want to eliminate the layers. It's not like adding a whole other department, it's one individual, but I want to eliminate some of those reporting layers so that this person is really kind of enabled to hit the job running. They kind of, not the clout, but like they have the support, of this is really a district initiative, and, we are going to be working on this. So I don't think it would be a lot to take on, and I actually would want to be able to work closely with this person to, on a day-to-day, a week-to-week basis, kind of set the course for where this is going. Years to come, maybe that's a position, once it's established, it could potentially roll somewhere else. But I do think for at least the startup period, when I did put this in the budget, I did put it in the superintendent's office for a reason, to be able to really kind of get this off the ground.
Yeah, I think it'll be important in terms of setting the standards for what it is that we want to see around consistency and stuff like that, to have them work with you for that district-wide.
Yeah, they're gonna have to work very closely with the tech department when it comes to, physically putting things on the website, revamping website, Twitter accounts, Facebook accounts, things like that. But tech is gonna be very busy next year with the one-on-one initiative, and I don't wanna see this person not be able to, or be stalled in any way, because they just don't have the access that they need, because something else is competing in the district.
I think also that this is establishing a policy. You're actually creating a communication policy in a sense, by, evaluating what's going on and seeing what's needed, and then giving a directive on what needs to be done district-wide. So I think it makes total sense, in my opinion, for it to be under the superintendent's office. And then in that sense, everybody has to follow that policy. It's very important to make it one standard thing right from the beginning.
All right. I was going to ask you, how do you want to word the motion?
I didn't know if Al had another
Yeah,
question.
I was just going to say, I see the person as being a promoter. They may do some production themselves, but they can't possibly do what needs to be done, in term, if they, obviously if they're at events, they can take pictures and they can write some things. But I think when you were talking about, making sure that the different schools have similar opportunities and produce similar materials, the same thing's true with departments, because we see right now, without naming anything, some of our departments, everybody in town knows exactly what's going on. In other departments, in areas, except for those involved, you just don't know. And I think, so I think that getting everybody on board, school-wise and in terms of the different departments, and getting the people, because the people in the departments know, the heart of programs. I mean, this person isn't going to know all the details of a program. They're going to have to rely on the other people. So I really see them as a promoter, and really getting the message out there, and the go-getter type of person, and not journalist. You know, I think it's the emphasis is on getting the job done and not doing the job so much. That's what I feel.
I would think if this is something that you support us at least embarking on, I think just a recommendation to support the creation of a communications and media director position as outlined, to allow us to at least start the advertisement process to see how this goes would be fine. And then obviously we'll report back as we go.
You got that, Al?
Yeah.
Good.
I move the Chelmsford School Committee approve the development of a communication and media strategy and hire appropriate personnel to begin that process.
Seem good? Okay.
That's fine.
Second.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 4-0.
All right, I'll
Good.
report back.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
It's exciting.
Item 11 on the agenda this evening, we had produced some reports for you throughout the budget process on the elementary and the middle school enrollments. And the high school obviously has a little bit of a delayed process because they have students that actually have to request courses and go through a whole scheduling process. But before we got too deep into to June, there were a couple of budget assumptions that we had taken into consideration that involved basically reallocating some teaching positions at the high school. One was within the art department, one was within the math department, one was within the social studies department. So as the high school has been going through their scheduling process, these three positions are not included in the process. And I wanted to bring back to you the data that shows the actual number of classes that would be running. Again, this does not include those three positions. You know, the current students that are assigned to each actual section that are running, what we have set as kind of the course maximums, and they vary a little bit based on just the level of class and what's involved in some of the classes. Just as a way, again, we don't have to go through every single class, but to give you a sense as you look through this, that even without those three teaching positions, our class sizes at the high school are still very desirable. Right as you go class by class through the various departments. Again, with these reductions, we're actually not impacting any type of courses that have previously been offered. It's just some condensing of the number of sections that are being offered. But again, they're being condensed, but still our numbers are very favorable. So I just wanted to provide that to you. Happy to answer any specific questions. You will see from time to time that there may be a particular class that's creeping up in, say, the mid-20s, but when you look at the actual number of sections offered, oftentimes it might be like a singleton, we call them, type class, where you don't have enough capacity to offer two. So those classes typically are your higher level classes, so it's like an AP class or like an H2 class, correct?
It could be
That
better.
would have that. So I'm happy to answer any questions. This is kind of where we're at in the process, but before we got too deep, just wanted to share this with you. And then obviously, once the high school is fully committed and we have a schedule produced for the fall, when all the students are factored in, this will be something going forward that we can produce at any time for you. But
So just, if I can just ask a
Yeah.
couple of questions on understanding this. The total assigned means that that number is already assigned to that class?
that means
Okay.
that students have requested classes.
Mhm.
The computer has gone through and developed a schedule, and that's the number of actual students
In the
who are
class?
in the class as of right now.
And then the maximum enrollment, you're not gonna take any more than that number?
We have to
into that
set,
class?
we have to
That's
set.
the
them.
parameters
Yeah.
that are set
Okay.
in the system.
So when I go through this entire thing,
Yep.
I was a little concerned about the language classes.
Mhm.
When you look at this, and you've got quite a few of them with 28, 26, 27, 28, 27, 26, there's quite a few. So what's the plan here for that? Spanish, French,
Can you just tell me which page you're on?
page 13, 14, and 15. Maybe I didn't understand this.
68. She's in, so they start on 66, but that would,
Eight
there's only one on there, and then
Spanish,
67.
And then 27, 26.
Oh, that page, okay.
Yeah.
So when you keep on going down, for, page 13, for example, 41313-001 French 2H, 28 students.
Next page, because there's only one on here, okay.
You go to the next
13.
one, 26, 25.
Yeah.
Keep going to the next
Sorry,
page,
27.
even more.
I said, so she's looking at 27, 27, she's looking at 28, 27, and then still on the scheduling process, so these may not be.
Right, but those are age classes too.
Those are H classes, well, that's an H2 and that's an H, yeah.
There are quite a few there, with pretty large numbers.
Yeah, if you look at the, I do see what you're saying, like on page 14, you go down, like, say, 4 classes where the Spanish 2 H's come in, and they have 27, 28, 27.
Yes,
The other issue you are gonna run up to is, like, say, they're offering 3 courses at that particular level. The students in those particular courses may be in other competing courses, other periods of the day. So it's not perfect to just add another section. It may conflict with something else in the master schedule.
okay. But you're gonna have classes with that larger size, there's quite a few of these. Yeah,
Do you know how many seats there are in the lab?
So these aren't schedules yet. These are just assigned for these classes, correct? So once the student schedules are done, these numbers actually may
Yeah,
drop
these
because.
might change, because right now that we're in the middle of still scheduling the students. So what might happen is you'll have a student that comes out of that class because they wanted to get another one, and in order to do that, you need to move their whole schedule around. I know it sounds super confusing, but
Okay.
they might find that they don't want to take that section, and that section's gonna suddenly go down to 25. So like a 2 to 3 swing on either side, sometimes up to 4, is very normal in the beginning start parts of the schedule. The students don't have their schedules yet. And keeping the classes within that, 25, 26 range is typical, especially for your H classes, your honors classes. You'll see that because there's only so many students that are recommended for that course. So we can't, just put additional students into that course because they're not recommended for it. But until the students have put everything up against each other to say what classes they're gonna take, these might change. You might see that 27 go down to a 24 because we have to switch them into another class. It's
Okay.
Like, for example, the chemistry that they want may be at the same time the Spanish that they want, so they'll have to move out of that Spanish
And go into
another
another one.
Spanish class.
And some
Or-
students change
Okay,
that they don't want to be in an H anymore, and then they want to go down to an H2, or vice versa. So there's some changes that happen with that. And if push comes to shove, and let's say some of these numbers creep up really, really high, it's going to go down in some other class. So we might just move the section, or we might move the teacher over to another section, depending on what the language is. Does that make sense?
all right, but then we have our maximum enrollment in a class is gonna be 29. So this is what I'm not getting. If our total assigned to a class is 28 right now, and that could go down, but we'll allow up to 29?
Where
That's
are
probably
you?
a singleton.
Well, like, which class are you referring to? As
I'm
29.
once again on page 13, 41313-001.
Oh, there's only one class of that.
Right, that's substantial, though.
I know, but it's the highest level class, and you wouldn't have 2 classes of 15 kids.
Okay.
In
So I guess I'm not
age
understanding
class.
our policy, because don't we have a district policy that says that we want to keep classes at 25?
You have district guidelines.
Yeah, we don't.
Right, there's no actual policy that says you can't exceed that. But for that particular honors class, I wouldn't have 2 classes of, like, those are your top kids. I wouldn't have 2 classes of 15 there. If we were gonna have lower class sizes, I would rather have lower class sizes in some of the lower level classes.
And this is in
Because if you had
consultation
two
with the
classes
teacher
at
that
14,
teaches the
15, you
class.
lost 2 kids, you have a class of 11,
That's
and
in
a class of
And those are
13.
the honors kids.
Right.
Okay.
As a teacher, I would much rather have 28 kids
I
in
just
an
want to
honors
make
class.
sure that, it really works, and I'm not
No, and it's
a
not uncommon. It's a
scheduler.
very legitimate question. It's not uncommon, and we work in conjunction with these teachers to say, listen, before we start, changing up who's offering what, is that a course that is doable? And they're like, yes, absolutely. So I know exactly who teaches this course right now, and there's already been a conversation with that teacher, and they're well aware that there will be 29 students in that class, and it's happened in the past. Unfortunately, if we could just divide them up perfectly and put them into, sections, that would be wonderful, but you're gonna see this swing back and forth as students are actually, going into their classes. So 29, yes, would be great if we didn't have to have 29, but when it's a singleton, it's really very difficult to then say, well, we're gonna open up 2 highest level classes with 12, 13, 14 kids, but keep a 24 in an H2.
So why would it be happening only in the area of languages? Because I didn't see it, I went through everything. I didn't see it anywhere else.
Students get to choose the different languages. You might see something like that. It's different in science where they have the, chemistry, the biology, they're different ones. It's because there's only the 2 languages that are
Right.
available.
So, and I thought that was, earlier on in the year, I went to a PTO meeting where Principal Murray mentioned that there would be a 3rd language added in. That's something that was
You're
a thought.
offering Chinese and German, is that an online class?
Right, those are for students that, students can take an online class if they've already met their graduation requirement, and then they can continue on. But he talked about adding another course, but what we're doing that for
Sign
next year.
language was one of the thoughts.
Right, that was actually a miscommunication, and we wanted to open up a 3rd class, but we don't have the FTE to open up a 3rd class. You need a teacher to teach that. So there's only X amount of teachers in this department. So there's 15 teachers in that department right now. You would need a 16th teacher to have a different language open up for ASL. That was just a miscommunication. That was rectified with the students.
One of the things that I will see with, say, the World Language Coordinator coming on board, I would like to see us offering additional languages at the high school. It's not something you just jump at in a schedule and throw a teacher at it without really seeing, is it the right language? Is it a language we can sustain multiple levels of? That was part of the issue that we had with Latin. We weren't offering Latin in the middle schools, and then all of a sudden you go up to the high school and you have Latin at the high school. But if kids have already taken a year or 2 of French or Spanish at middle school, oftentimes they don't just jump to another language come high school. So we need to have a longer term.
You need to be able to get teachers in some
And
of
you gotta get
these
teachers.
things, too.
Yeah, I mean, that's an issue with
I
Latin
think
in
everybody
particular.
speaks Spanish, but getting certified people is a whole different.
Right, you need that, and also it's a rotating schedule too, so you can't have like just one section of it, because this person would be coming in and teaching at 7:19 in the morning, and then suddenly teaching at 9:20 in the morning the next day, and as the schedule rotates through, it's very difficult to staff something with just a section or 2 of that. We do have 2 teachers in the department, actually 3 now, that are bilingual. So if we needed to switch them into another language, we have the capability of saying, okay, we're gonna collapse this section or extend the section and put you into that. and
Bilingual
have-
between
Meaning
Spanish
Spanish and
and
French. So there's 3
Okay.
teachers that speak.
So if we are not going to be able to offer a 3rd language, it would seem that this is a department we need to really think about in terms of maybe, staffing, because these numbers, in my opinion, seem to be getting higher.
I wouldn't disagree with that. And that was part of the conversations with Jessica, that beyond just world languages and then also the exchange program, how do we build our programming and what does that look like? And there is that feeder system from the middle school into the high school. How do you make those adjustments if you are going to open up the 3rd language at the high school only?
Well, I think we talked a little bit about class size in general, and I would be more interested in September to see what these numbers really look like, because these are kind of projections at this point, correct? And
There is movement that happens over the summer.
Right, and then, almost in the opposite of what Maria's saying, I'm looking at some of these classes, and I was wondering if we're gonna be collapsing some of them.
Well, some of them are combined classes. I think what's
Well, some of them
difficult when you
special
see it in this
Okay.
form
It's just the way
is that
the
you'll see
kids
that some of the
schedule.
classes are actually combined
I thought
with
about
another
omitting them, but
section.
then I didn't
Okay.
want to take
Right,
something
So
out.
that's
it
why we
might
have
be-
1,
right,
2,
Right,
okay.
so you might see, like an intro and then an intermediate, and the intro and the intermediate are actually happening at the exact same period.
Okay.
The teacher's just differentiating for those 2 pieces, because we want to offer the student, say, like, take, for example, like the choir, you might see somebody, only 2 students in honors,
Right.
and then the rest are not. Those classes are happening at the same time. The teacher will make the differentiation in that classroom.
Okay.
That happens a lot.
That was page 16.
Yep, I
Yeah.
expected that as a question, because I have them highlighted as to who is combined with whom.
Okay,
But it does get a little difficult when you see like 4 kids in a class.
right,
But then if you look at it, I could tell you where they were combined.
okay, thank you.
The issues that you've raised, it's really important. It highlights it. And so as you go to make adjustments, you know where to look. But overall, I can tell you a lot of schools would buy it right
Oh,
tomorrow.
yeah, I agree.
I mean, these class size, we used to have class sizes at 30-something across the whole department. I mean,
Yeah. Overall, the numbers are good. They really
yeah.
And these are very desirable
Yeah.
across
Yes.
the board.
I just
but-
wondered why only in the language area. but
The
it's
languages
quite
are a
bit.
little high.
Yeah.
Yep, they are.
No, what you did, it needs to happen so that as people make decisions, you know where the challenges are.
Right.
So it's
With
absolutely
the
necessary.
coordinator that'll, really look
Yes.
at it.
It's
That
just,
would
there's
be
a
good.
lot that goes into adding a language, and I just think that we have to think about how we do that at the middle school at the same time as the high school, or we're gonna end right back up in the situation with Latin, and is it really gonna be sustainable?
Right, and we have to just make sure too, it's a graduation requirement, so it's not just, oh, we tried it, oops,
Right.
it doesn't work. It's also somebody's job, right?
Right.
You know, come work
Yes.
for us, sorry, it's not working, and then all of a sudden we have students that are like, oh, wait a minute, I haven't fulfilled my graduation requirement, and then that turns into a whole nother problem. It's very difficult because, and to go back to your original comment about, Principal Murray talking about ASL, that was one of the classes we were talking about. You have your romantic languages. Some of these other classes are very difficult, so it sounds exciting to have maybe all German or Chinese, but it may not be.
Mandarin's tough to get teachers.
Mandarin, you need the teacher, but you also have to make sure that's right for the community and for the students. We don't want to put them into their language requirement and have them, fall apart. So something like ASL sounded very good because we do know there are teachers that are out there. We also know that it's rigorous enough. It's not as easy as people think. But it would be something that the students could then latch on to, and you don't have to worry about that feeder system coming up from the middle school because they would be interested in the course. But until we really vet that out and have somebody that's dedicated to it, which will now be Jessica, which is great, we wanted to make sure that we were following,
Yeah, and I just want to
protocol.
say, and it's true, when Principal Murray mentioned that, he said finding a teacher would be extremely difficult.
Yep.
He did, he stated
Because
that
they
to
have
us
to be
as
certified
parents.
from DES, and it is a certification, but you would need to
Mhm.
make sure that the person was able to have the certification as well.
Would that count towards their language requirement for colleges?
It would. We looked into that too. When Tom Wright was here prior to Lorraine, that was one of the things. They said, if we are going to go in this direction, we have to make sure that this is not going to be a problem. We'd have to get it through MIAA as well to make sure that that would be a requirement. But we checked with places like Tewksbury. I know Tewksbury offers ASL, and they said that it is a graduate, it counts towards college. We just want to make sure we don't put students in a bad position. Any courses that we have students take that might be unique, if they have their heart set or they're thinking of multiple colleges, we always say, you better just double check that this is okay, anything that they're taking, that they're not looking for an additional requirement, because we wouldn't want them to then apply and find out that they couldn't get in because of any department.
Thank you.
No, and you're asking good questions. Please keep asking them, because they are
Okay.
good.
I'm not trying to,
No,
play
No, I don't-
hardball
I
or
don't
any of those
take
things.
that at all.
My concern was it seemed to focus on one area.
I just wanted to give you kind of a snapshot in time, because we talked about the elementary and the middle, and you really hadn't seen high school data. This is obviously still being finalized. When we have a committed schedule for the fall, and we actually have those numbers like Donna suggested, we can produce another one of these to kind of show the actual students and where they are. And then, we'll use that data when we're preparing the budget for the following year.
How is it going with enrollment right now? Do we have as expected or for kindergarten?
Yeah,
Kindergarten hasn't moved.
It
too
hasn't
much.
moved. I think we used to see that fluctuation for first grade because we weren't sure who was coming in. Now we actually know who's walking through the door for first grade, but it hasn't changed and there hasn't been huge enrollments. The only concern we'll ever have is obviously in August, anybody that's just moving into the district, they may be waiting for a lease, or they just don't register, they're not used to registering their students for school, but there hasn't been any big swings that have happened with kindergarten from the last registration to today.
Great.
Jane is really good about updating us to say, oh, got a big influx of people. No, not a lot.
They've even moved the CHIPS kids up to the appropriate kindergartens for next year.
Yep.
And we're not seeing any need right at this point to go from 4 to 5 classrooms in any of the schools. The 4 classrooms that we budgeted seem to be fine.
And I'm not seeing any uptick in anyone looking for a grade 1 waiver because they've already had a kindergarten program somewhere else. They didn't meet the cutoff. They have to petition to go into first grade based on grades, finishing a program, recommendations. This year I've only received 3. Usually I get upwards of 10, because they've gone to, they don't want to repeat kindergarten, because they were with us already, because it's full day. A lot of people opt out of kindergarten prior to full day because they want a full day program. So then they would come to us and petition to go into first grade, not meeting the age requirement. 3 is very easy.
Okay, thank you.
Good year.
Okay, item number 12 this evening is a memo on a request from Joanna to approve the fiscal 20 non-affiliated staff salary or rate increases effective July 1. So just as way of background, this is similarly an annual vote that you take to basically, and this one, would approve a 2% cost of living increase to the salary or hourly rate of all the non-affiliated employees. So these are the employees that aren't part of a collective bargaining group. There's a list attached to the memo. So typically, this group gets the same cost of living increase that the contracts have received. And they don't have contracts, so that you don't award this on a multi-year basis. This is a vote that you take every June to grant this group of individuals the 2% increase that goes into effect on July 1st. So happy to answer any questions you have. The list is attached, and would recommend your approval of this.
Questions?
Yes, I'm going to ask a question,
No,
I'm
you can
sorry.
ask questions. Go ahead.
So, these employees, do they operate, for example, let's say somebody has, is going to take leave for a pregnancy leave. Do they have the same rights as the folks under contract or no?
Typically, they typically,
You follow the contract.
they don't have a contract to follow. We have like district guidelines and just general policies that apply to these individuals. But what is not covered within that is the salaries or the increases in rates for these
Okay,
individuals.
but everything
So
else is the
someone who's
same.
not affiliated, they would have the same maternity leave or parental leave as other people in our unions. We typically have the benefits packages mirror the different groups.
Okay.
But these groups, just for whatever reason, don't fall within a contract.
Okay.
Do they choose to be non-affiliated, or this just they just don't fall within any unit?
Yeah, because you have a CNA and a
Any of
social worker.
secretaries,
I'm a
yeah.
little surprised that they're not affiliated with,
Yeah.
Yeah, so the, in the teacher's contract, we have RNs and LPNs that are covered. But at the present time, the CNA is not. We employ, or we even, I think we used to contract with an individual in that role. They're kind of student-specific around particular health or,
They
well,
wouldn't
health
come under
needs.
paraprofessional?
What's
They
that?
wouldn't come under the paraprofessional? part?
No, so there has been discussion in the contracts about how to handle, again, there's not many of them, there might be like
Okay.
one or two, and they would, the position would go away if the child went away.
I see.
So typically, if the union wanted that position to be recognized, there's a process for them to go through to do that. And if that were to happen, then we would actually try to put them in the appropriate, pay grid and lane of the contract. But it just hasn't happened for these individuals.
Same with the social worker?
Social worker, that is a subject to negotiations right now with the
Okay.
teachers. But we created the position for the first time, so when we create a position, it's not affiliated with a contract. The union who feels that they're most closely related to can put us on notice that they feel that, and that they want that person to be in the union, and then we have a process we have to go through to have that be properly recognized.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve a 2% increase to the annual salary or hourly rate of pay for the non-affiliated workers in the school year 2019-2020.
Very good.
Second?
Okay, any other questions? Okay, Al?
Yes.
Maria?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Yes. 4-0.
Great, thank you. Next item of the evening, item 13. These are 2 recommended budget transfers for the current year. This is dealing with fiscal 19 funds. I'll give an overview, and then Joanna can do the more specific description or discussion if you'd like. The first one relates to technology. One of Bill and the technology department's projects for the end of this particular school year was to outfit our third grade classrooms in the elementary schools with some interactive classroom technology. So within Bill's technology budget, because the tech budget is on two different pages of the budget book, I'm going to speak in round numbers. Of the $90,000 purchase, $30,000 is in the appropriate page of the budget and the appropriate accounts. Another $30,000 is in Bill's technology accounts, but it's on the wrong page of the budget. So you need to move it basically to the correct page so that we can code the expenditure properly and then report it to the DOE properly. And then Bill's funding basically is enough to account for 4 interactive setups to go into each of the schools. But when we've been talking to the schools, some of our third grades have 5 sections, not 4. And as we're doing this, what we did with the 4th grades last year, they actually had 6th grades outfitted for either classrooms or say like a special ed room that dealt with that particular grade level, or a tech grade that dealt with that grade level. So to be able to add 2 additional setups per elementary school, that's the other $30,000 that's necessary, and that's recommended as a transfer from SPED contracted services, which is under budget and will not be expended at this point in the year. So in summary, again, Joanna can go through to the penny numbers if you'd like, but it's a $90,000 purchase to finish the year. $30,000 is in the correct accounts. You don't need to make any transfer. $30,000 is in the technology budget, but it's on the wrong page of the budget book, so you're moving it to the correct page. And then if we want to increase from 2 to 6 setups per building, we need that final $30,000 transfer just to be able to do this all at one time.
Any questions? Now, on the wrong, it was like, when you said it's on the wrong page,
Right, so you know how,
physically it's on the wrong.
no, but you know how you approve the budget?
Yeah.
And you approve it by DESI function code.
Yeah.
So let's say page 10 has technology, but like administrative technology.
Okay.
And then page 20 might have instructional classroom technology. So it's all within technology, but these classroom technology setups want to be made from the classroom instructional technology accounts and not from the admin technology account. So Bill needs to move that money from the admin page to the instructional page so that it's coded properly, so that when Joanna goes and does the end of the year report, it's reported properly. So if you want to jump in with a more detail, but that's the kind of layman answer. And what we've always done is we can approve transfers within a particular DESI function code or a page of our budget internally without having to come back to the school committee. But I don't want to do this because it actually moves from one page to another or one function code to another without your approval. So we've always said we'd come back to you for approval before we were to move that. But I'm happy to answer more or talk more about it.
I
It's
think
just,
Donna's good, I could tell Donna.
No, actually, you just explained it. I understood it. Thank you.
all right. It's keeping the school committee authority over approving DESI function code budget transfers. And that's what this is doing. And we don't want to enter the purchase order or make the purchase and have half coming from the admin account and half the instructional account. Could you do that? Yes, but I mean, it would throw off the reporting, and it's really not proper. If this is truly classroom instructional technology, we should code it there, and that's why we're making this move.
So this was unexpended money in the administrative account that we're moving over to the
Well,
cloud? No,
Yeah,
I'm
but
sorry.
you have technically administrative accounts even at the school level that are just on that page of the budget. So it's still school earmarked funding. We're just going to put it in the instructional accounts
Okay.
to purchase the interactive classroom technology.
And the other part comes from
S-
circuit breaker.
No, not circuit
Not
breaker,
circuit
SPED contracted services.
Okay, SPED contract.
It's a local budget account that's not being utilized because the grant was picking up the bulk of the contracted services.
And these are all items that are already in the budget and have nothing to do with that additional spending
It's totally
that we're
separate.
doing towards the end of the year. Okay.
Yeah, that was totally separate.
So now we're gonna have instructional equipment, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, those screens,
Correct.
and at the high school in the 9th grade.
9th, but the high school is actually, yes, to answer your question, But in addition to just the ninth grade, because some of the rooms are used for multiple grades, just depending on what the teacher
Okay.
teaches, the high school is actually getting a bigger impact. Because, if you think about it, at the two middle schools, there's 8 core classroom teachers, so you'd think there'd be 16 at the high school, but we're actually outfitting 40 classrooms. So almost twice as many at the high school being outfitted, because teachers might teach 1 or 2 sections of freshmen,
Right.
but then they might have a couple sections of sophomores or juniors. So that teacher's gonna be able to utilize that technology even with his or her other classes. So that really, the high school's gonna get more than just ninth grade.
Okay, thank you.
So we want to approve this one first, right, and then?
I would, and then we
Okay.
can talk about the second one.
We're doing the 60,000, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I move that we transfer $60,801.96 from identified DESI function code categories to complete the purchase of interactive classroom televisions.
That works.
Oh,
That was very good. It's like you've done
You
this
must be a
before.
veteran.
This job,
Looking ahead.
Second.
love this job.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any other questions? All right, Al?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Donna?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Here the second.
Yeah, Donna seconded it, 4-0. Yeah.
And then the second transfer before you this evening is a smaller transfer just within contracted services and athletics. Do you recall at the last meeting, there was a list of a little under $500,000 worth of the one-time purchases we were making. One of the purchases, that multifunction activity vehicle, we had estimated $55,000. When we were purchasing it on state contract, the price was actually $3,500 higher, so it was $58,000. So we need $3,500 basically to finish that proposal. And then, Joanna, you can go into it if you'd like to, but we'd like to not totally deplete the athletic revolving fund. So we're looking to transfer some available funding within sped contracted services to athletics so that they can actually pay a couple of their contracts. There's a tennis contract, a gymnastics contract out of the local budget, and not have to tap into the athletic revolving fund as much as they would have to. Is there any more specificity on that?
Very good summary.
Joanna said I gave a good summary.
Sure.
Any questions on this one?
Go ahead.
I just want you to clarify that we're not taking money away from special education.
No, we're not taking money away from special
Okay.
education. This is gonna be an unexpended account at the end of the year. Basically, some of the contracted services obviously just came in less than what was anticipated at the beginning of the year. But the special education grant also has contracted services on it, and the special education grant was able to cover most of these contracted services. So we're not taking money that's needed in special ed. This would be technically reserved at the end of the year. But we're just gonna allocate it to this, to basically not have to deplete the athletic revolving fund. So this is gonna allow the expenditure to stay within the local budget and not have to tap the revolving fund.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'm not clear. Are we transferring 3,005 or?
No, it's cumulative, so you're transferring 15,000 from sped contracted services to athletic
Okay.
services.
I move that we approve the transfer of $15,000 from the account specified.
That's fine. The intent is there, Al.
Yeah.
Any seconds?
Second.
Second.
Aye.
Al?
Aye.
Donna?
Aye.
Aye. So when do we get the van?
Oh, by the end of June. It's very nice.
Yeah, oh,
I'll show it to you.
gonna have it branded and all that?
I think so. Well, minimal branding. I took it for a test
People are
drive.
really excited about
Took
it.
it for a test drive.
Oh, did you?
Yes, it drives just like a regular
Oh,
van.
it's gonna be
Yeah.
very
It's
important.
nice.
Not just
Yeah, I
sports,
think,
it'd be a
to be
lot of
honest with you, there's gonna be need for multiple, even as I've been talking to people, they're saying, you only bought one, you should have at least two because of the way they're going.
Yeah.
But we can talk afterward. Okay, my last agenda item this evening, agenda item 14, is just approval of conferences and field trip requests. The first 5 5 are related to the community ed program. Robin was here earlier today. These are conferences, field trips that are either out of state. I'm sorry, let me back up for a second. Field trip 1, 2, 4, and 5 are community education. These are just day trips that happen to go out of state. So that's why they're before you. Field trip 3 is an out-of-state and overnight. It's the Chelmsford High School yearbook kids and their advisor that go to Bryan College for, this is an annual thing that they go to every year. And then item 6 is just looking ahead. I had reported this again in my summary of activities from last year. This is a conference I attended last fall. That was honestly one of the better conferences I've gone to. This is the one that a lot of vendors and showed a lot of different products. But this one is also timely because they're talking about school districts transitioning to digital learning and digitizing curriculum. It's largely sponsored by the vendors themselves, so there's actually no cost to the district for the registration for these conferences. And oftentimes, there is a significant registration fee. So I would appreciate you allowing me to go to that. It's actually, it's like it goes over a weekend, so it's like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday type thing. But I will be out, I'll have to leave Thursday to get there for the conference. So I would appreciate you supporting me doing that.
Any questions on any?
Was this one on school safety too, that you went to last year? Was this
No,
combined?
that was the one, that was another good one. That had the Safe Plan software that we came back with.
Is that Florida?
What's that?
Yeah, I was like, that was another good one.
No, I had two
And then
really
there's
good
gonna be a
conferences.
fourth.
That was in Orlando. That particular conference, it was very good. It conflicts with the, one of the superintendent conferences in Mass this year. And the particular summer one is also, it's in Las Vegas.
Need somebody to go for you?
I'm really not a huge fan of going to Las Vegas in the summertime. So we'll hope that they have a more of a regional conference in the fall and the spring. But no, that was actually a very good conference, too. The nice thing about that one, well, and I'm being serious, the nice thing about that one is it wasn't just school staff, but there were police department staff, from police chiefs to assistant chiefs. You had school department personnel, you had facilities people, even educators from like universities were there. And you could really just kind of talk in a lot of the not so formal sessions about how people are actually just implementing a lot of the different practices. And they had a great vendor fair as well. That is where we got the Safe Plan software that we're in the middle of finalizing now to kind of roll out for the fall. So there really is an advantage of kind of going to these conferences and picking up, making the contacts and just connecting with people.
It's important.
All right, any other questions?
I move that we approve the conference and field trip requests as presented.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
Thank you, that's all I
All
have.
right, okay, any liaison reports?
Let's see. I attended the Harrington PTO meeting. They did their elections and have a totally new board coming in for the coming year. And they did their thank yous to the outgoing board and welcomed the new board. They also agreed to make a major purchase that the PTO is funding on some equipment. And that seems very important to Harrington. So the PTO, it's a substantial amount of money that they're spending on that, and it appears to be very important to them. Congratulate the
I heard about
PTO
that.
on all the efforts they've done throughout the year, because they've raised quite a bit of money.
Anybody else, liaison? Kind of winding down, I know center school's next week, so I don't know. A couple more to finish up.
It seems
Armstrong,
like I
right?
say it every time, but the Rotary Club hosted the May and June Students of the Month, and they just get better every month. It's such a rewarding experience for those that get to see them. I wish the whole community could see them all the time. The other thing is, I'd like to commend the athletic director, Dan Hart. Last night, they had a senior recognition program for the athletes at the Elks. And not only was that the parents and everybody involved, it's a really nice occasion, but I'd also like to commend him for initiating a number of programs and procedures that are new, and I think pushing that area in the right direction.
And I don't know if you've heard, but it's been announced, the play in the fall will be Chicago.
Oh,
That's the musical. And everyone is very excited about that.
Nothing. Have you seen Chicago? Okay.
I'll see you for the first time in the fall.
Okay.
It'll be fun.
All right, any new items? Any?
yep, I just have a, do we have any idea when the middle school schedules will be coming out? Because I've had some parents say that they're anxious to get going on their supply lists.
Yeah.
Um,
I will follow up with you. I do know that there were some emails going around internally about that, teacher supply list, trying to get them posted to the websites and whatnot.
Right.
Let me follow up with you,
Okay.
and I'll get back to you.
And then the other thing was, with regards to, I know that a lot of teachers, I speak from my own experience, you know, are looking for donations of tissues and wipes and hand sanitizer. And sometimes they'll tie it to like a homework grade or points on a test. And I worry about, you know, doing that because, I mean, I'm not sure that, we're assuming that everybody can contribute.
Right.
And I don't want to see anybody penalized because they can't. So I was just wondering.
Yeah, we frown upon that. I mean, it should not be happening. And if something's happening specifically, they should contact the building principal immediately and let them know, because it is an equity issue.
Yeah,
And
that's,
it's not
yes.
the purpose of what they're doing. They're just donating because we use a lot of tissues, you know? Somebody has sniffly noses, but nothing should be attached to something academic that is not provided by the school district.
Is there anything we could do to start the teachers off with tissues, wipes, hand sanitizer and stuff, so that they weren't relying on the donations?
That's that PTOs usually provide that, but yeah, we could do that. I just think it's something to allow the kids to connect, like, oh, come on in, it's like, hi, here's my tissues. You know, that, for a student that might not be able to necessarily, you know, do so, you know, they talk to their teachers. But, yeah, we can certainly get them things if they are in need of it. It's really not a problem.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else? Any new things? Well, given this is our last meeting before the end of the school year, so I just want to take the opportunity to wish the students and the staff of the schools a safe and fun-filled summer vacation, and we'll be getting ready for the fall.
Yeah, just a couple of closing things. I know next Wednesday is a half-day for students, Wednesday the 12th, and then they'll be released for the summer, so they're counting the days. Our teachers finish Wednesday, and then they have a half-day Thursday, but then, you know, they'll be out the 13th for the summer. This is going to be a very long summer for us. I think going back before Labor Day helped. We really haven't received any pushback about that. After we got into the school year, I think people understood it. Also, having only one snow day all year certainly helped us get out early. So we're looking forward to that. We're going to have a good, 10 or 11 weeks to get our buildings cleaned and ready for the start of the school year. We'll be sending out a kind of a thank you email and some summer instructions to staff the end of this week, early next week. But things are, coming to a close. Linda had mentioned earlier, we do have the prom tomorrow night, and the center of town is typically a little congested with pictures and all the pre-prom festivities. So you might want to avoid the center at
Is the
rush
weather
hour tomorrow night.
cooperating for that?
Excuse me?
Is the weather cooperating?
I believe so.
Yeah, tomorrow looks pretty good.
Okay, good.
It does, so that shouldn't be a problem. And then Saturday, we have the high school graduation. That's always a nice event with the
4 o'clock,
kids.
right?
4 o'clock on Saturday at the Songus Arena. There'll be a lot of pictures, I'm sure.
And there's a reception beforehand.
No, I know. But there'll be a lot of pictures, I'm sure, on, Facebook, the paper and whatnot. But no, it's been a great school year, hopefully coming to a close the next week or so. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Great.
Thank
Can
you.
I say one, just if we're wishing everybody, I think we have a few retirees this year. Is it 18 in total,
Including everyone?
I think?
Yeah, it's just shy of 20, so 18 and
So just
19.
wanted to really say thank you to people who have given quite a bit of their time and their lives to educating our children, and wishing them the best as they move forward. And I know a lot of the PTOs do little things at the end of the year for the retirees, but to me, it just, it's a lifetime of commitment when you choose to teach and do it for that long. So just want to wish everybody really all the best and thank you.
Great.
All right.
I'd
Thank
also
you.
just like to add on to that, I think it's really great that the lunchroom staff and paraprofessionals and so forth retiring were included in the district retirement party. I think that's really
They had a
good.
party last Wednesday.
Yeah.
Great.
It was very inclusive. We got a lot of.
Yeah, I think that's really important.
praise for that.
You know, it's more meaningful to some of them than
It
some of
really
the other
was. It
people,
looked like it,
yeah.
yeah.
That was good. Well, thank you.
All right, since there are no public here, we'll pass on public comment and take a motion.
Move we adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.